All right. Hi, my name is Zoya, and this is my dad right here. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, my name is MQ Qureshi, and I am a technology executive. I've been doing it for over 25 years, and most recently I've worked for Ford Motor Company and now Allstate Insurance working in digital product.
All right. So today I'm going to be asking him a couple of questions on his best and worst interview experiences. So let's start with the best ones. What job were you interviewing for, and what made the experience good?
Thank you. I've worked in many different places over the years. Each interview experience has been unique, and I've also been on the other side where I've interviewed a lot and hired a lot of people, or not hired them. Probably one of the best interview experiences I had was for McDonald's.
Oh.
And what made it really good was that I got a very good cross section of people. There were people that were on the leadership side, there were people who were peers of mine, there were people who were in other teams. And I felt that the opportunity to talk to a lot of them gave me a very well rounded idea of
Nice.
what the company had to offer and how things worked.
Mm.
Also, what made it good was that it wasn't stretched out over a very long period of time. I must have talked to, I would say, about between 6 and 8 people, and all that took place over a period of 2 weeks. So, very
Very
well
cool.
orchestrated. Everybody who came in was very specific with the questions that they asked. They also gave me a lot of time to ask them questions, and the different levels from people who were levels below the area that I was coming in to peers of mine to leaders gave me a very good idea. So overall, those factors of timeliness, focus, and cross section of individuals, as well as the ways in which the interviews were conducted, made it a well-rounded experience.
That's really good to know. What do you think you learned from this experience?
I think I learned that it's always good to value a candidate's time. Um, there are experiences I've had. I'm sure we'll go into some of the ones that
Yes.
aren't as good, where things stretched out over a very long period of time. It was very. This was very compact, which made me feel like, oh, they're very serious about moving forward with this role. Um, so. What I learned from it is that it's good to value somebody's time. The fact that when people came in and were very clear about the questions that they were asking made me feel like they were well prepared. Like every single person who came in was prepared for the interview. There are interview experiences where you go in and you can tell that the person coming in has not thought about it much.
Yeah.
And that again to a candidate makes them think that the person on the other end or the company is not reflected well, or that their time is not valued. So that was also a good learning experience. And then the other part of the different levels of leadership, from top leadership into others, again made me feel like they were very transparent, and again made me feel valued as a candidate, and also gave me a good benchmark to use for interviews that I would conduct in the future.
No, that's really good advice, especially you learned a lot as an interviewer and obviously for a future interviewee with those experiences.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, moving on to your worst interview experience, again, what job were you applying for, and what made the interview bad?
I would say that, boy, I've had a couple of experiences that have not been the best. I'll give you kind of a summation of the top three, and then talk about the worst absolute
All
one.
right.
So one experience was with one, I won't name any companies, in this regard, but one of the worst experiences, or not, I don't say worst experience, but one of the ones that was difficult was with one of the top three consulting companies in the world. And I went through 16 rounds of interviews.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of people, and it stretched out over a long period of time. What made it difficult was that, again, it stretched out over a long period of time, which again didn't make me feel like my time was being valued.
Valid.
there were so many different rounds, which I can understand. You know, consulting companies, especially top tier consulting companies, are very picky about who they bring in. But it didn't feel orchestrated. So all of those interviews, it felt like I was being asked a lot of the same questions. It didn't feel like there was a coordinated effort around it. It didn't feel like they were being very focused on what the opportunity was.
Yeah.
And the fact that there were so many of them just stretched it out. And I will say that again, this was when I say one of the top three, the other two companies that are often associated with this company are McKinsey and Boston Consulting Group. So you can guess which the third one is. The other thing is that after the 12th interview, that was when I actually had the first conversation with who would have been my hiring manager, which is very strange, given that normally those are ones that you meet with early on.
Yeah.
He was one of the last ones. In fact, the last one. Then I was told after that one actually went really well, and I thought that I was I was a shoo-in, according to everything that he told me, that, oh no, we have one more final interview. And then we have another final interview. And that was 4 more final interviews. So that again, was not the greatest experience. The second one was, of the top 3, was with an organization where, let's just say that with this particular one, you get your packages very quickly when you order them online. And with this one, I had a very good first interview with the HR individual.
Yeah.
That's a screening call usually that happens that makes sure that you're a right fit for the role. And when the individual who was the hiring manager came on, it just felt like very clearly on that there wasn't going to be a fit, and that this person was just going through the motions.
Yeah.
So again, that made me feel like, okay, I'm entering into this process. It's clearly that I'm not the candidate that they're looking for. So that made it a little less than stellar. And then after that, the thing that which is fine. You go into interview cycles, and that happens. There's not a match, and you move on. What made this one stand out was that afterwards, they effectively ghosted me, which meant that I kept following up to say, okay, we've had this. Are there any next steps? Or if they're not, that's totally fine. I'm happy to move on. But then not to get any response from them on the other end, which finally I never did. I ended up just giving up. It just made it feel like, for a company of this caliber that this was not good. But the absolute worst experience was one where, again, a very large corporation, they're in the office products distribution space, where I had a very good first interview with the hiring manager, who was a very senior leader, and we hit it off. We had a very good conversation. He asked me about my experience. I was very happy to share. He's like, fantastic, I really want you to move into the next round, and I'm going to have you talk to one of my top lieutenants. Fantastic. So I get on the phone for this next call, and 5 minutes pass, 10 minutes pass, 15 minutes pass, and the individual is not there. And then I'm messaging the HR person saying, hey, I'm waiting, is so-and-so going to show up? And they never did, and finally the HR person had to say, I'm really sorry, can we reschedule? Fine, I understand that things happen, I'm not too worried about that. Reschedule, get on the next call, and 5 minutes pass, 10 minutes pass. Now it's like, okay, this is happening a second time. And I was just about to, message the HR person again when he showed up. And then when he showed up, we started chatting, and about 5-10 minutes in, he goes, remind me of your name again? And I was like, okay. Then he's like, okay, I got it. I have your resume here now, blah, blah. So we're going through, and then he's asking me questions that I've already answered. He, is asking me questions that have nothing to do with my particular area. Now I'm getting a little irritated, and I'm like, I asked him, have you actually read my background and seeing
Yeah.
anything, and he got a little irritable, because of that, and he asked me a question about the size of teams that I've managed, and I talked about that, and he said, well, here's here you're gonna potentially manage a much larger team, and I said, okay, I haven't done that yet. I'm not this is the size that I've managed. I'm happy to take that on, but I just want to be upfront to say that this is what I'm gonna do, and then again he. At that point, I think he asked me to hang on for a minute, and then he was gone for another 5 minutes. So now, when he came back on, I said, you know what? Thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity, but I'm going to withdraw from this process. And he was shocked because an organization of their caliber, of their repute, he actually got very irritated with me and was kind of rude, in that. And I said, well, sir, I appreciate the opportunity, but if you haven't clearly prepared, if you're not valuing my time, if you haven't bothered to read my resume, then it's very clear that this isn't the right fit for me.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a better candidate that's available for you. So that was one that stuck out the most because I'd never actually come across someone who had been that unprepared.
Yeah, no, that's surprising, and all those things sound really frustrating. Yeah. Despite like all these things, like obviously, like seems like the interviewee didn't really know, or the interviewer didn't really know what they were doing. What do you think you learned from these experiences?
I mean, I think that you always have to maintain your professionalism. At the end of the day, in the working world, you're going to have more bad interviews than good.
Yeah.
You're going to meet people with whom instantly you're not going to hit it up. And you always have to maintain your composure. You always have to maintain your professionalism, and make sure that you are proceeding in a positive manner. Sometimes also there's people that you're going to meet that maybe you don't hit it off, but that could be also due to many factors that have nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
It could be the situation that's going on in the background. Maybe they had a bad day. Maybe the situation in the organization is really rough. Maybe they just came out of a very rough meeting where they were chewed out by somebody. So all those factors doesn't mean that they should lose their professionalism.
Yeah.
But you have to maintain yours. I'll give you a good example where there was when I was working at Granger, when I came in, there was a particular individual that I thought that we didn't really work well together in terms of the interview, and I didn't feel it went terribly well.
Yeah.
That person is someone that I am very good friends with today. Now, probably a good 15 years later, because while our dynamic wasn't quite there, she was professional, I was professional. We left. We maintained that. That carried over well with her in terms of how she was estimating me, as I found out later. And later on, we were able to build on that. So I think the biggest thing is be positive and maintain your professionalism.
Well, thank you so much for the advice and the insight today. I really enjoyed hearing about your worst and best interview experiences, and I hope we can do this again.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the time, and I hope this has been helpful.
Thank you. Bye.
Very good, Zoya. I hope